time, like, it's that question of, would we even be doing this if, like, technology didn't come about? Like,
no, we'd probably just be having conversations.
Yeah, for fun.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
We're live. Say something.
Hi.
Mics are on. We're good.
Good?
It's good. Yeah. I have to obviously go to the bathroom right now, but it's fine. Is there like a closed bathroom?
Right there.
Fuck yeah. It's gonna be dope because this is gonna be recorded while I'm taking a piss right now. This is pretty cool, guys. Podcast is about to start and nature calls. Just number one now.
Welcome back.
I was talking through the camera while I was in there. I was like, and I gotta go to number one. Is that like wrinkled or is that?
No, that's fine.
Good?
Yeah.
We're ready.
Let's rumble.
Almost ready. My man purse, all the essentials.
The eye drops, the chapstick.
Gotta be ready. Gotta be ready. Water here, water there. Ooh, I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually taking my shoes off.
Sit back, relax.
No, literally. I feel like I have to be all proper. I'm like, fuck that. Take my socks off.
Yeah,
I'll
we're
take my
comfy
feet off.
cozy.
And now my OCD has to check to make sure that it's still filming. Yes. Welcome to the Butts and Donuts, not a podcast. We are here with episode, I forget every single time. I want to say it's 8 or 9. But we have the lovely Dree. And we're going to talk about things related to fitness, personal life, some juice, and we're just going to go from there. Because I do a great job at editing. Yeah. Who are you and what do you do?
So my name is Dree. I am a women's health coach and personal trainer. And honestly, I help women live their best lives. I help them figure out who they are, I guess what they want out of life through fitness, and be of as much guidance as I can through that.
I love that.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that for?
8.5 years now.
8.5 years. That's longer than me.
Yeah, 8.5.
I love that. 8.5 years.
Yeah.
What got you into that?
I've always been like in sports and stuff as a kid. So that was something for me that was like a standard almost. As our upbringing, it was like be involved in something, don't just sit around. And so for me, that was all sorts of sports. I did basketball, volleyball, softball. I ran track at one point in time. So I think when I got to college and I was like looking for that extra, okay, what do I do now that I'm not like in a sport and I'm going to do this every day? That's honestly when I started to bodybuild. And so I've just been in the gym ever since then and haven't really stopped. And it's been a constant evolution.
I love that. I already got some juice question right here just based on that. I struggled with, I'm going to give some preface to then help with the question after. I struggled so much with when I stopped training, like working out, COVID times. It's like the last 2 years, I'm back in the gym totally fine. But for like 5 years, I didn't work out like that. I really didn't. I didn't go to the gym. And almost like I lost my identity of like, what the fuck am I if I'm not working out and training and bodybuilding, whatever it is, right? So there was this stint of time where I was like, who the fuck am I? Like, I don't know what I am if I'm not working out. Everything else is in shambles, when really it really wasn't. So my question is, did you have any internal dialogue or thoughts when sports was over for you in school and the transitional period to figure out what else you want to do next?
Yeah.
Right? Like, was there any space between that you were, again, going through, like, what the fuck am I doing now?
Yeah.
Or was it just an easy, like, no, I'm going from here to there, and that's it?
I think that when I first got into college, it was like, there's a social aspect to it, right? Like, there's other people going to the gym, you want to go. I knew it made me feel good. I like to run, like, so I would do all sorts of different things. And it wasn't just like being in the gym, I got into intramurals and all sorts of stuff too. So I think that, like, I found a community aspect in it. But for me, it was like the initial phase of it was more about that. And then I got to a point where I was like, wait a minute, I actually want like results. I actually want like more for myself. And so I think it was like, I was just kind of doing what I was used to for a while. And then I had to almost step into this like more difficult version of that journey to like get to where I am now, or like to veer more towards that like bodybuilding side of things. Yeah, I mean, just because my brothers are older than me too, so like growing up in the house, like that's how I socialized.
Okay.
It was me and my parents. And so for me going to college, that's how I made friends, that's how I did all of that. But then you also get into like the freshman 15 and like the partying, and like some of these people in the community, they might be going and doing this for like, a social aspect, but that's what it was for me, was social. So then I think it became more personal once I got a couple years into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that community really helped you vibe with that and move into that and become like your reality.
Yeah, I mean, because I was at the gym all the time too, right? There's people that were trainers that worked there, you know, that I became friends with just by being active and like going into that setting. And then I was able to kind of like find other people that were in it a little bit differently that I could challenge myself in new ways as well.
Incentive for you, intention for you, you know, that what kept it, getting results. Did Dree want any physical certain results from, you know, starting that bodybuilding phase or moving from sports into certain things, right? Results in sports, winning or getting certain achievements and stuff like that. Did you, how do I put this? Do results drive you?
Yeah, and they do. And at that time, I would say that it was for two different reasons. One, the young, naive personal trainer who's a little insecure, who wants to look a certain way, and you really like value that early on in your like journey. I think that happens to a lot of us, where it's very aesthetic in the beginning, and then it gets to be more of that like deep connection with yourself.
Ooh.
But then there's the other aspect of it where like I was so used to like the sports mentality of like, I want to win, I want to work hard so that I can win. And so like there's also the level of like that I would get out of it as well. So I think in the beginning it was more like those two angles, but it's kind of veered off into more of like a personal journey in itself within myself, not so much like winning or looking a certain way.
Gotcha. So you've seen Dree's shifts
Oh yeah.
of different chapters of looking back at old Dree, right? And
Yeah,
seeing, you know, who
100%.
she was and stuff like that. How do you handle not achieving something, if that's even?
You know, I will be honest, I like internalize a lot of that stuff. I
Okay.
get very bothered when I tell myself I want to do something and I don't. So that's been like a part of this whole thing as well, is like, how do you get over yourself and like those little fears that have been like programmed within
Yeah.
you, right? To like get to that point.
Gotcha.
So for me, it's like I'm one of those people where whatever I want, I'm gonna get there at some point in time. But having to go through life to like be able to figure out how to do that has been more or less like my journey with things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
If you could even explain to me, like, what do you feel in your body when you feel like you don't accomplish something or you don't do what you said you were going to do in that moment? Like, what comes up for you? How does Dree navigate after that? You know, what does that look like for you?
So I think the biggest questions that I like ask myself just in life in general are like, how do I want to make people feel when, you know, we're not here forever. So it's like when that time does come, like, how do you want people to remember you? Or like, how am I able to like use my life to help shape others and put them in a better place or a better mindset? So for me, when I get like those holdbacks where like I don't like take action, I think that's something where I'm like, no, like you have to do this because you've come so far yourself. There's so many other people out there that don't have somebody to like lead them through that or like be somebody to talk to as they're like trying to evolve. And so for me, I want that for people because I've had people that have come along my journey and have been that for me. And it's been really like helpful in getting me to the point where I can even like think to do all of these things that I want to do, right?
Okay. Because here's what I find so fascinating, and this is what I've been working with myself. Everything that I notice myself talking about, or when people ask me questions, and I always almost like go away from my own self towards other people or other things versus like focusing on what's coming up for me and my body. Like, how is this making me feel? Like, what do I really want? It's so peculiar to see that because we do that so much.
Yeah.
So many things take us out of our bodies, right? Like, the reason why I say this is like what comes up for us when we feel lack, when we feel that we're not good enough or we haven't accomplished something. Like, how do we navigate through that? And it's so simple to say like, well, just fucking be motivated. Like,
Yeah.
just fucking want it.
Yeah.
Like, you can go this way or that way. Like, cool, thanks for that piece of non-helpful advice. Like, it's like telling someone who's overweight, like, stop eating. I'd never even fucking thought of that. Like, obviously, like, it's not that. It's a little bit
Yeah.
like, again, why I always say everything is always a little bit deeper, right? There's always like these roots and things that we want to get to, or I believe we not need to get to, of where we want to go in this tangible black and white world requires some deep work
Yeah,
in the gray
100%.
world to actually get us there, right? Like the Dree in the past was needed to get Dree to certain levels, right? But now that old version of Dree isn't needed anymore for Dree currently, presently, to get to where she needs to get now, right?
Like, I think that one thing that everybody should realize is that we like we learn a certain way from like a very young age. And this is like something that I've been looking into because I struggle with the same thing, those like very short spurts of like that lack, like within self, right? But for me, I've always been a fan of learning about the body, whether it's like it's not just personal training for me. I learn a lot about like neuropsychology and just how our thoughts can change like the way that we move ourselves, but also like what's happening within the body when these things happen. So I think for me, it's been like learning to understand what that stuff is. And then like, I have to be honest with myself, like take those points, like when you are feeling lack, like I have a little notebook literally when I feel that, because I tell myself these little lies sometimes, but then I have to be like, wait a minute, wait, that's not true. Like, who am I? What do I want? I think about these things in that moment, and I go and I take my notebook and I'll write down like my truths, like almost like an affirmation. I like build the affirmations, but with that, it's things you have to keep like telling yourself. And so I've been like doing so much research on this lately, just about how your thoughts can change, like what can happen for you in your future and allow you to be like more present in how you shift things from there on out. And that's like a thing, like if you have this negative thought, but then you think, okay, who do I want to be? And you like believe that and you think about it and you kind of manifest it in a sense, like you premeditate this person. The science says that your body is actually more likely to start veering towards that. So for me, like with the lack and stuff, like that's how I've been like, working through those.
It's like, do you almost have conversations with yourself?
100%.
Oh my God, oh my God, I'm so glad I met someone like that. It's beautiful because I've been talking to myself since I can remember. It's so wild. You know, people be like, you talking to yourself over there? I'm like, yeah. The tough thing is things that we do like this seem simple, right? Just fucking be positive. But simple's not easy. And even in psychology, like we're pre-programmed for negative bias, it's called, right?
What is it? Like, I don't even know the number, but it's like a ridiculous high amount of our thoughts a day are negative.
Right? Crazy amount. I just heard this the other day and it kind of clicked a little different. And I believe that each time you hear something that you've heard before, you're at a different time, it's a little different. It's
past
understood differently.
So
when I hear something repetitively, almost like a pattern, it clicks a little bit differently because what I'm gonna say next, I've heard forever, but this story changed a lot for me. Negative bias. Like if you go back in fucking time, right? Go back to like the Stone Age type shit, our ancestors, whatever. And let's say me and you were together, right? We're fucking hunters and gatherers. And I'm like, Dree, let's go in there. It's a fucking cave. It's a black cave. You don't know what the hell's in there. And you're like, bro, no, we're gonna fucking die. What are you talking about? Like, oh, let's not really fucking do that, man. You crazy? I'm like, well, fuck you, more fun for me. I go in there, what do you know? I get fucking eaten, I'm dead. You go back to the tribe and say like, Mike just died doing this, like, and you're embraining yourself, stay safe. Stay safe. Because the crazy thing is, the people that think like me are all fucking dead. They're trusting everything. They're like, let's just go through life. How I live my life right now, back then I'd be dead. Because I'm not trying to fight or flight or stay safe like everyone's trying to do. Literally in real life right now. That's where we're all in this fight or flight versus arrest and digest. Because it's literally fucking built inside of us. And it's our power, our responsibility to a certain degree, just like you said, to change those things
100%.
and move into that. But it's understanding that like, you go back to the tribe and say things like that, you don't think you're gonna pass that on to your child, right? That's gonna be like, don't do these things, you gotta be safe and stuff like that, and follow this, and passed on and passed on. And that's why we have this negative bias where we are trying to stay safe because it literally made us survive back then. Like you weren't gonna die if you thought about all the angles that this might not actually work out. If we go in this cave, we're probably might get eaten, or like we're not gonna get home enough time and it's gonna be dark, right? Like that saved us, but it holds us back a lot right now. So it's like, it's interesting that I see it like that. It helps me unravel what I do with my present life when those thoughts come up.
And the dialogue is everything. I mean, for example, for me, like I come from a very, I call it a small container, and now I'm in a very big one. So like the town that I grew up in, maybe 3,000 people, maybe a little bigger now. It's not saying much though, right?
Yeah.
So when I came out here, I think that I was so used to being like a big fish in a little pond. And so spreading my my reach, right, has been a learning experience of putting myself out there, because what once used to be putting myself out there now is like a feather. Like it doesn't, so I have to really like grow into this like version of myself. I don't want to say that's more, but like you need more confidence. You need to be a little bit more like edgy and bold, like in the moves that you want to make in life. And so that's something that like I've had to learn, that I've been programmed to, because I've been programmed to live a certain way. And it's not to say that the way that people that still live there is wrong per se or anything. It's just from a very young age, I knew that like what I wanted for myself was a lot more. Yeah, and so like with that, I just knew that getting away from there was like all I could do, because I had already kind of accomplish like what everybody else does there. Like you go to school, you graduate. Like my initial plan, I was actually supposed to take like a 2-year all academic scholarship locally to just start going to school 30 minutes from home, and I was going to stay there. I was in like a long relationship all through high school, and there was just like this piece of me that was like, I got to get out of here. And so I left like 3 weeks before I graduated high school, 3, 4, 5 weeks, somewhere like that. I decided last minute that I was going to leave, go to state school across the state, and then I haven't really been back since. Beautiful. So for me, that's like changing your environment is huge, because unless you change things, like nothing, you're not going to figure it out, right? Like how are you going to put yourself in new situations that are a little bit scary and see that you can get through them if you're living somewhere or like in an environment or community where you're not like being challenged to do so, right?
Oh, we're like the same person, because the same thing for me. I moved back home from Boston, moved here. The same feeling you felt, you know, I don't not like everything, but there seems like there's more. Like I want more. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's not like even like when I hear like I need more, like we don't need anything.
Yeah. 100%.
We want more. There's nothing wrong with that, because my last podcast with Olivia, she talked about like the purpose of life and stuff, and I agree with her. Is like furtherance is more.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. But it can be it can be a slippery slope at times, right? We can not be getting what we think is more, even though we're getting it in some different form, and not see that for some reason, and feel lack, and feel like, you know, all those things. Change your environment. Like that is such, like you are who you hang around with.
Yeah.
Like that's a very vulnerable thing, a very confident thing to do, even though it doesn't feel confident, right? Because you're like, what am I going to be doing here, going here? But to do that takes confidence, right? It takes some friction, because it's different against the grain, if you will, of what my family does or what they want from me.
Yeah, I feel that.
How is, like you said to me a minute ago, like your container is small, but your container is bigger now.
Yeah.
And I visualize that as the container Dree can hold for herself. My container was like this.
Yeah.
Now my container is like this, meaning I can hold more space for people, but that's really a reflection of I can hold more space for myself because of the work I've been doing and blah, right? And that's a beautiful fucking thing to have, because your cup can be filled. And how, like when you moved away, right? What did the family say? What's your relationship in that degree with that?
Yeah, so I think that I'll say this much. Anytime I've ever moved, it's always been like, all right, I move in, it happens super fast.
Okay.
So like for me, when I moved, like, I mean, I think at the time it was to further my career. Obviously, I had initially moved out here on a job transfer, working for Orange Theory. So like, that was how I got out here. I had my best friend out here. To be honest, she's the one who's also very ambitious, and she's always like growing. And so like, that's the one I love to be around her, because we just...
It's like magnets.
Yes. But in the beginning, I think it was, you know, my brothers moved away. They know like, go do what you gotta do.
You have two older brothers?
Two older brothers,
Okay,
yeah.
so are you the youngest?
Yeah, I'm the
baby.
baby.
Cool.
Yeah. And it wasn't really, honestly, until COVID hit where there was like that area that didn't mesh well, right? Because I think that at the time, you know, I was young, I was in management, I was like moving up. So what do your parents will see with that? Good. Like I was making good money, like for where I was at that age, right? And so in a sense, like when COVID happened and I was like, I went back to Orange and, you know, we reopened everything. COVID happened again, it shut back down. And that's where I was like, man, like, I want to be helping people. I felt like that was a container too. I mean, there I have like all this experience and knowledge, right, that I can use to help people on their journey. But I also couldn't use it there because it was super corporate. There were certain things or advice that I wanted to give people that, quote unquote, you couldn't.
So,
right?
Okay, did you feel like restricted in this, like,
Yes.
you feel like you couldn't share your truth or like express yourself as you wanted to?
And there's that feeling, right, of wanting to be more, right? And so that's when I started to kind of like experiment in my mind with like the idea of entrepreneurship and like going off and doing my own thing. But it took me like probably 2 or 3 years to even get to start to do that. So, and that 2 to 3 years was where there was that like part that didn't mesh. So like, and there's nothing wrong with this, but like my parents see things very like 401k, like
sure,
you need a stable
very
job.
like standard wise.
I initially was even going to be a dental hygienist, and they're like, healthcare, it's never going to go out of style, like you'll be straight.
Yeah.
But that sounds like life sucking to me, like being in the same setting every day, doing the same thing. Yeah, you might be helping people, but that just wasn't how I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I feel like there's more ways that I can, right?
Yeah.
And be a little innovative about it. That was actually really hard. And it's still like a struggle sometimes.
Ooh, yeah, of course,
yeah.
of course.
But I think getting to the point where you go through those periods where you do have to talk to yourself and you do have to like, I guess, rewire how you think and get rid of like old thought patterns. Like that's what had to happen during that time for me to be okay that there was a difference there. Because it used to be, it would hold me back so much because I was scared to like do something different, to like lose a relationship, right?
Ooh.
But then you realize, okay, a mentor said this to me actually, and this is like where I'll leave this rant. But it was, you can live doing things that please other people to keep everybody in your environment happy, or you can do what makes you happy, and you might have to like lose some people or some connections along the way, but then at least your soul's happy. And that shit hit.
That shit fucking hit,
And
right?
it hasn't like gotten out of my head every day ever since. I think about that all the
Yeah.
time. When I have a hard time taking action, like I think about that.
Ooh. Yeah, because that aligned with you, right? You felt that. I
Yeah.
feel the same thing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, it's a very powerful feeling to feel. And then not just to feel it, but to then apply yourself, right? Like really like embody that and move through life like that. Because you can say all the shit you want to say, right? But read all the journals and all the things, but like if you don't apply it to your life and implement it and integrate it, it's just knowledge that's honestly just knowledge. Because I don't believe knowledge is power if you can apply yourself with it,
how
right?
can you
Otherwise
use
you
it?
have all these great, amazing thoughts, great. But if you don't really feel them and embody them and flow with them, you're not gonna,
Yep.
That's fucking beautiful. Is it tough to be who you want to be around family that may want to see you differently?
I would say that, like, to be entirely honest, sometimes I'm a little avoidant to it. I haven't pushed the boundaries a whole lot yet.
Ooh, I like it.
I think there's some who are ultra accepting and like have never, I don't want to say like shit on, but they've never given me any vibes that there's like lack of support, right? But then there's other people where I think that what I've learned to understand is that it comes from like within them too, some of like their own fears, like the concept of that mirror, right?
So you see them like projecting.
Yes, I started to take things a lot less personal once I understood that concept.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay. But it can be a little bit sad sometimes because then you realize, oh shit, like.
Or to be empathetic for them and see
Yeah,
like the
you're like,
life,
oh,
the ignorance
yeah,
is
you're
bliss,
like,
and like
crap,
they really.
like you haven't seen the light.
And that's a slippery slope too, because then we can start forcing our behaviors on them.
Yep. And I did that for a while. But I kind of was like, no, you know what? Like sometimes just backing off and like letting things happen as they are. And I think that that's been the best thing for me, because then things happen in their own time. I think the more that I align with myself, there's like a reciprocal energy to that too. Right?
Reciprocity.
Yeah, the more I can align with myself, the more
Back
I
to
feel
self.
people in my life see what I'm doing, and that I'm like very genuine about like how I'm moving and moving with intent.
Yeah.
And I think that can almost be like motivating to the
That's a
people
vibe,
in your
man.
environment.
People vibe.
And then they're
literally.
like, they see the change and they're like, you used to hold back sometimes, and now you're just like
Yeah.
going for shit.
And people will start to be curious about you
Yeah,
because
and
they
then
see what you're doing.
And I think that, we talked a little bit about like where's the industry headed and like how are things changing. And I think that that's one that I'm like actually excited for, is that people are taking fitness is more of this like mind, body, soul
Yeah.
approach. This is a
Oof.
personal experience. Like, and then there's like, you know, even just the nutrition aspect, like how that affects the brain. Like I do a lot of research on gut brain axis because it's so important. Like I don't think about all the things that we consume. It's not just media or food or whatever, but I like think about it from the caveman days. What was around for people, like community, like loving people, protecting like your community, things of that sort.
Yeah, connection.
And with food, like what was around? I think about that. Like how did these people survive with the bare minimum? And I'm sure there were ways that they could be like happy and like, you know, find that sense of self with nothing. So I think about that all the time. We have all these things that can be very distracting, but like how do we as humans like strip ourselves of all of that and like get back to ourselves? Because school, like that programs you to a degree to be a certain way, or you know, the town you grew up in, your home life, like all of that,
everything.
So yeah, it's like how this fitness thing, it's not just like fitness, like you know,
it's more than counting reps and lifting weights.
Yeah.
It can be just that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because I said before, here's the other one. Again, I come from the sense of like, well, people go to the gym to run from their shit.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I want to say right now. I want to say that. When it's like, stop talking about other people for a second, Mike. I have gone to the gym many times to run from my own shit.
Yep.
I feel that. I lifted weights for like 15 years before it really became like, what the fuck am I doing right now? You can still abuse phenomenal tools, right? I can still go to the gym and still run from my shit. And that's why I do believe we're all going through the same thing to some degree. That's why there's, I think, a big community for that, to connect with them in that, and to ask those juicy questions to uncover who the fuck you want to be, who you are, not who everyone's telling you to be. And it starts in our family. I love you all, right? But that's the thing. And I think a big root cause of mine is, it doesn't seem like if I talk about family right now and go into the deep aspects of the traumas and what created Mike right now, people go like, well, how does that relate to fitness? It does so because when I start unraveling some things about my childhood or my life, they're attached to so many other things in my future.
Yeah.
Of why I feel not worthy, why I feel like I'm not good enough, right? To apply myself, to go to these seminars, to create this, to do retreats, all these things. They're not even close to where people are thinking they're coming from. Like they're trying to like, well, why aren't I working out every day? I said I was gonna work out every day. Like, what the hell? You know, it's getting down to those deeper uncoverings that actually catapult us forward even more. But it seems like you're going backwards when you're really not. But at first, it's a lot of fucking shit.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said that is we hold on to a lot of our family shit because that's who made us who we are, right? I'm very thankful for the things that I saw in my life. I think people are wired differently sometimes though, because for me, I saw a lot of what not to do.
Yeah.
Most people could say
Same.
a lot of what to do.
I think
and
I'm
now
an expert at learning what not to do by surroundings. Yeah.
And that's just reverse engineered to a lot of people seeing what to do.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm going to be an alcoholic now and beat my wife, or you know, drop out of high school, right? Fist fight people. Like, if that's what I take in and that's what I see. But I was just like, this doesn't seem right. I don't want this.
Yeah.
Like, no, not at all. So I just was like, well, I'm not going to do that then. But it really was that simple to some degree. But then we get older and we're like, well, fuck you guys for this and fuck you for making me like this, right? And it's like, is it their fault we are who we are? Absolutely. But is it our responsibility when we come to a certain age, if you want to call it that, or a certain timeline, that it is our responsibility to change our own things and not play victim to things that we feel like we can't change?
Yeah.
And that's where acceptance, like acceptance is a huge thing. We don't accept shit in our lives, right? It's like, well, this could be better and this is good and I need more of this. Or like, I'm kind of okay with it, but not really. Like, I genuinely love my family a lot more. I'm a little bit more connected to them now. I was like a devil child. I was a fucking asshole, man. I was not an easy person. I was not easy at all. But I was also in an environment that wasn't fucking easy for me either. You didn't want to hear me? Well, I'm gonna make myself real fucking loud real fast.
Yeah.
You're gonna hear me now. And that's just, it's transformed over the years. Like, I've always had confidence to that degree of like outlash and like speaking my truth, but to a very extreme degree, where it's now disrespectful and out of line, and versus someone who doesn't say a fucking word and holds themselves in and is really depressed and anxious and doesn't live their life. But now it's that pendulum.
Yeah.
And you're finding balance of, well, I'm not gonna speak to people like that, but I have this deep like truth and confidence that like, I'm gonna say something.
Yeah.
And it's gonna word itself differently and you're changing words and stuff.
See, and I feel like I'm the opposite, and it's funny because you remind me of like one of my brothers, because he's very eccentric, like in his words sometimes, and he's always had like that kind of confidence about him. But I think I'm quote unquote like the good kid, and it was a product of the same type of upbringing, right? But just like how I perceive things differently.
Yeah.
So whereas you went from this end of the spectrum to like this end, I feel like I've gone from that, like, I don't want to say like less confident, but that I shied away from a lot of things to where I've had to like, and then I turned into the other, and now I'm like finding like that in between as well. But you know, something that I've had to like think about within all of that is, you know, yes, it's my responsibility to like do my own healing, the self work. And yes, like I am a product of my environment, and yeah, sometimes that sucks. But I also look back even further than that, because like, okay, where did they come from?
Yes. I was just going to go into that. Yes.
And that is like so much worse than what like I got, right? And so like, I do think about that. So I have to be like grateful in a sense that I still can see like, and it's tough. Like I'm not through all this shit. I'll be totally honest with you. But at the end of the day, like what I have learned to accept is like, they did so much better than where they were from. And so that's where like this whole generational healing thing can be very beautiful, and you can start to like really change the trajectory of like where you want to go with your life, you know, based off of people like doing as much work as they can, you know. And I'm, you know, I'm happy to say that I still have parents that like they want to still do like work, right? Because they realize, I think my healing journey and like realizing my holdbacks and like I shied away from like being open about that for a long time. But I think once I did start to be more open about that, then other people around me were like, oh shit. And at first it wasn't always taken, but after a while it was like, no, like actually I think I get what you mean. Like, and I was like, okay.
Well, it's like finally someone's hearing me to some degree, like you're seeing me a little differently now.
But it doesn't come from a place, and I think it used to come from a place of like, I fought so hard to be like heard and validated. Things like that. Yeah. But now like that I've found like that peace within myself, I think that that's just what I want for other people around me too, right? I don't want to see them struggling like I had to like go through all these battles, like, because I see that within myself from like, you know, the time I was young up until like the last probably 3 years or so like that. And I think about, okay, well, if I was like that for you know, the first, say, 25 years of my life, but then I have somebody who's been like that for 40 years, I was like, I feel for them. So I don't know. I take everything, like some days I want to be so like mad about certain things. Other days I'm very empathetic. So yeah.
That is beautiful, because that allows so much acceptance, right? And seeing your parents from where, just essentially like seeing them for who the fuck they are, right? Not who you want them to be. And that in itself will shift their perspectives. Of like them seeing you for who the fuck you are, not who they want you to be. And it's like you're gonna be seen and heard as a byproduct, right? Not like your main intention. I'm not doing this for this result, but I'm being my fucking self. I'm with me. This feels good to me. And then it starts to, again, it might not be heard the same way at first, and it refines itself over time, but people see it. And that's a vibe that we want. At least that's a vibe that I want, because that magnifies and that pulls in people that are in that same frequency of what you want in your life, right? And that's why manifestation and law of attraction is a real fucking thing. Like, you best believe that, right? But man, I think that's so amazing you said that. You're probably the first person that had that thought like I did and actually shared that.
Yeah. I think about that a lot. I think like the biggest thing for me has been like getting away from what I'm used to become like who I want to be. And that middle ground between there where like I think I just knew what I wanted so much that I was like, well, I want this, can't you see that? Like I want this so bad. But then like when you're going, I think I sought out a lot of advice too from like the parental, you know, aspect of things. And I didn't understand at that time though, like I didn't think about, okay, what have they been through? What does safety look like to them is like a big thing, like, because their life now, they've built a beautiful life. I mean, I can't say that they haven't, and I'm lucky my parents have been married for forever. Not a lot of people can say that, but also like I see that what they've built, that's like their like safe home. They come from very like not safe environments, you know, drug addicts, alcoholics, like abuse, all sorts of stuff. And then my dad's from Mexico, so he like grew up in a place that was totally like night and day difference from here, right? And so that to them is like, that's their piece. But for me, I was able to be born into that, right? Very different than them. And I see like everybody around me doing the same thing, that like I see a lot of my peers that I grew up with, like they go on and they just do the same thing, right? And there's nothing, I don't want to say there's anything wrong with that.
No, you're just observing it.
But what I'm saying is like what I want for my family and like that growth, like the generational growth, I wouldn't be able to like do that, right? Somewhere else.
What you're saying is their reflection is showing you again stuff that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like there's no judgment on it. It's just an observation of like, this is what I see from whoever. It's really slippery slope though, because we can say like, well, I'm not judging right now, but let's be real, I could be judging because I would, if I was like that, well, I couldn't do that, right? Like, and we don't want that. So we see these reflections and we're like, cool, you know, that's your life, but I want to go this way.
Yeah.
It's like showing us signs of like where we want to go, almost guiding us to some degree, follow our intuition, which is what you've been doing beautifully.
Yeah. I didn't always do it beautifully though. I fell into like society norms. Like I was always like the school, follow, comply, win, yay, thumbs up. You did everything how you're supposed to. But like you don't really learn like that. And I got out in the world and I was so hard on myself when I like first moved away from home, and I would like, something wouldn't happen how I wanted it to. Or like, you know, I did something a certain way and it didn't pan out how I wanted to. And I'm just like, why? Like I used to be like, why? Well, now I see it as like, okay, all I've ever known in my life though was like doing things right, because if I did things wrong, I was worried I was gonna have like issues at home, right?
It's like a reward system.
Yes,
almost.
yeah, it's like this will keep you safe if you're doing everything right all the time.
If this, then that.
So I had to really get comfortable with like making mistakes when I got out here, because I started to realize like, okay, yeah, these things happened. I used to victimize myself a lot. I'll be honest, like there was a couple years where I was so good at that. But then I took them more as like learning experiences. And I started to realize that I actually learn by mistakes very easily. You put me through something once, no way in hell I'm gonna go do it again. I might make a different mistake with the same end goal again, but like you weed things out and then you figure out what works for you. And I think so many people are scared to do that. But you know, when you do come from somewhere where there's like a lot of almost like negative reinforcement, don't do this, don't do that. When you're trying to have these breakthroughs, what do? Your brain, don't do it that way, don't do it that way. But then you get stuck in non-action. You're not doing anything. So it's like, might as well just go freaking make the mistake, because what's the worst that can happen? Like you either lose something or someone that's not supposed to be on your path in the future, or you grow from it.
Yeah, you're like, I already have shit, so why not see what can happen from this?
100%.
We really have very similar pathways.
Yeah.
So interesting. I feel like I'm listening to myself talking. I'm like, this is so fucking wild. But it's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Like it feels good. It feels like you can fucking do anything.
Yeah.
Now getting to there is different stories, but like the underlying knowing and the trusting of like, I can really handle a lot of things. Do you think for you, noticing once you came from like do things right and not be wrong, just practice, like actually just trying things and screwing it up and being like having like moments where it's like, okay, like I actually get what's going on here, because this is making me feel like I can do more of this now, and I can actually see the growth. Like I can see for me personally, I have this, just like I have dialogue with myself, I can realistically take myself out and be very unbiased and like literally just observe. Like I can literally, this whole podcast at many moments, I've been taking myself out and just seeing what we look like. Like I'm just observing this and this connection, this situation, and it's such a different perspective. But it's like when we're in those moments, people say like, I wish I knew the good old days when they were the good old days. Like I feel those times when they're actually here.
Yeah.
Like, and having that dialogue with myself and that inner talk where it's like, oh no, you're okay, like you fucked up, but did this and it's helping you get through here. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's funny, I'm going to show you something. My screensaver, literally, it says, 20 years from now, you'd give anything to be this age again, exactly this healthy and have this time. Go do some main character shit before it's too late.
For real.
I think about that all the time. I have to like stop and think sometimes, like when I'm in a moment of discomfort. And I honestly didn't even get really good at this until like the last year, where I've like been able to have that like unbiased view on like things, right? So I think for a period of time, the mistakes weren't so much like action where you like do something and then it like goes the wrong way.
Okay.
It was like non-action mistakes. So the things that would happen as a result of me not doing what aligned with myself. There was, and that was that fear of like, okay, I want to do things a certain way and I see this for myself, but when I ask, when I look outside of myself for all this advice, I get told to do this, I get told to do that, and then I start using that as my guide and I don't use me. And so there's so much shit that's come up from me like doing that, having that people-pleasing tendency, and then not doing what aligns with myself. So what ended up happening was I wound up in enough of those situations feeling like, gosh, I'm not any closer to where I want to be.
Ooh, big awareness.
So I might as well just freaking do this my way.
Literally my inner words.
Yeah, and so that was like what really motivated me, you know? Like I had gotten to that point and then like a massive life event happened. Crazy shit happened with my mom. I won't go into too much details, but like some medical stuff. And we didn't know what the heck was going on. It was scary. Like there was a couple days in there where like people were like, I don't really know how it's looking. Bounces back from one situation, boom, another one, like right away, freak, crazy accident. So like I got to that point and like for me it was more looking at her situation and like, okay, you sit on a computer for work, people stress you out at your job kind of like you talk about it a lot. I know at the time that was like a big stressor for her, you know, we talk very often. And I was like, man, there's like a lot of that like lack in there. And I was like, she's so young though. And then all this stuff happened and that threat of me like losing her, I was like, well, I don't want to get to that age and feel that way still. Because I was feeling that way at the time in like the profession that I was in. I had got out of fitness for like 2 years and I was so like, I don't want to say lost, but I just felt like I wasn't like
finding yourself.
Yeah, I wasn't like advancing how I wanted to. And I think a big thing for me is like I've had great coaches in my lifetime and I just love coaching and like being that person for people. And so missing that aspect of things for me was pretty tough. And I feel like when I'm doing that for people, I am myself. When I was like doing all these other things, I was just like chasing paper, trying to get to the money. But like, what is that if you're not like enjoying it, right? And so that whole situation, like I was having those epiphanies while all these things were happening. And so that's when I was like, you know what? I don't have any clients in Arizona. I know people, but I don't like know. I don't have like a web that's cast wide. I haven't been here for very long. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to just start this thing. Like
that really helped.
Boots
like,
on the ground. Like,
it's almost like that inspired you a lot.
Yeah, it did. Because like I said, I didn't want to get to that point and feel like, wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda done this. Like
regret.
that just, what a sad place to be in at some point in time, right? Yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
That's a motivator. That's not even just motivation. That's an inspiration. Will keep going forever. Having those life-altering kind of perspective shifts in those moments, but not even just those. It's you somehow seeing all that as it's unfolding, right?
Yeah.
Like having that awareness, that intuition to see like all these things, not just again walking blindly through life. You're pretty much unraveling yourself and rewiring, and intentions are shifting, and motivations and inspirations, and then leading into that by how that makes you feel, and not doing this makes me feel this way, and shifting it and moving it, and like that's furtherance, man.
Yeah.
That's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
You can't lose. Like you can't.
Yeah. And it's honestly been the healthiest thing for me. All said and done, like, yeah, I had to go through a lot to like get to this like content, like mind that I have now. And yeah, obviously not every day is perfect, but for the majority of my life right now, like I'm in peace. I know how I'm moving, I know what I want, and I know how I want to make people feel. But yeah, it's actually been like one of the most healing journeys. So like I've been a little more open about this lately, but like I have Hashimoto's. So I found that out when I was super young. Honestly, also grateful for bodybuilding for that, because like the in and out of my body, how I was tracking everything when I found out I had that issue. And I probably would have never actually figured it out for years had I not been so in tune with what I was doing every day. But there was so much of my journey that was like, how do I heal from this autoimmune issue? And, you know, at the time, research wasn't like as advanced with like the mindset work and how that can affect you. And so the initial part of that was how I eat, you know, how I exercise, reducing stress from the body, you know, in little things like that. But like mostly it was like the eating and the exercise. And I think a lot of people gravitate towards that and then they cocktail it with like a medication, right? And so that's where I was at. But like there was this level of like stress and inflammation that like I couldn't ever get rid of. And so that's where then going through this phase of like, hey, I've done all the right things up until this point. It wasn't until I got like really real with myself that like a lot of that shit left my body.
Yes.
So it's like there is
layers.
Yeah, to healing and all of that. Like in my health journey, it's not just been those how I eat, how I look, how I
Those were big foundations that started.
Exactly. A big foundation that started it, but it's evolved from that to be something that's more personal.
And you get the sense that there's, again, more to fitness than just exercise and nutrition, which I'm sure you can relate to a lot of other clients like. Isn't it such a beautiful thing to notice? How about this? I think there's something so beautiful about this space. And the spaces that I'm trying to describe is, I'm sure Dree has a moment before this space where she's like, gonna make a choice. And in between that space, and a different result happens, right? That space right there, that's where the magic lies of like all these things we're talking about, because Dree has to choose something different at some point, right? Something she doesn't know is on the other side of that thing, right? Because she is so in tune with her body that she's honestly tired, and she is tired of knowing that if I choose the same thing, I'm gonna get pretty much the same result. Maybe different, we might try to talk ourselves into something different, but like when we get real with ourselves, right, we know. So it's like, well, I don't really want that anymore. Like I'm kind of tired of that shit. Like it's almost where the stuff that we're doing so much of actually gets boring now. It actually doesn't even like, it's not even that I'm fearful anymore. I just don't want to fucking do that anymore. But like, why we choose something different? That's where the magic is. That's why we are who we are, right? And the people that we're sharing about, like why they follow those different path lines.
Yeah, you have to like be a little bold in your decisions.
Right?
You
but
can't.
Like, to be aware, that's a huge thing. It's not so simple, right?
Yeah, it takes a lot of experience, and it also takes a lot of time doing things different. And like maybe messing up a couple times, or you know, and seeing what that comes about to actually have that level of self-awareness.
Because I feel like that's where I vibe with you so well, because we have such a good level of a black and white, right? Like, bro, do this, it gets this result. Here, I analyze, I see things. But also the gray area of like, yeah, but like there's some things that we can't just write down on paper that I'm trusting and I'm feeling what's going on in my life and manifesting and all that shit, right? That like woo-ha to some people. That like 10 years ago, don't even share it with me. If you can't prove it to me on a study or anything like that, I don't want to fucking hear it. But I needed that. I still love that foundation I've had, but to have that mixture of the gray and the black and white and to see ourselves so differently, it's fucking beautiful.
And I think that that's where, as coaches, you can lead people, right?
Yeah.
Because I stopped taking clients for a while at one point after I stopped my business, because I felt so much that I was like, I see people around me that may be going through certain things. I'm like, I can only lead people as far as I've been.
Ooh, yes.
And so then you gotta be a little daring, go a little farther, right? But when, like, you have to realize when you're a person like that and you're willing to do that, it's infectious, like we talked about. And so sometimes, like, just being around that energy and, like, getting people in a place where they're bettering themselves in other ways, but then you can get them around that energy and, like, motivate, you start to see more people do it. And I think that there's a lot of different professions or, like, coaching styles or programs that aren't just fitness that I think can get people to that same place. But our goal, right, is to like find people who align with this initial one. So how can we expand them farther? Not like not forced, but like just by energy.
By expanding ourselves, right? But like, I see so much of reflections in myself of all my clients, right?
100%.
I see so many reflections of myself from you, right? When I chose to see that, instead of like, well, fuck you, and this is bullshit, and this is whatever, and why is my client doing this? Very different trainer than I was 10 years ago, right? Asshole, if I look back. I wouldn't be friends, I don't think, with myself right now, honestly. Learning from our clients, knowing that you don't know everything, right? Like seeing, because our goal is to get results for them to some degree, whether it's a tangible, you look better, or it's more of an internal, like you feel better and all these things. Like there's some result that we're trying to search for. I get that. When I can learn from my clients, like if I can genuinely see, ooh, this is the juice right here. What I started doing the last few years, congratulate, fucking congratulate. Because me growing up, very athletic in that sense, always winning, doing things, best at this. Looking at, dad ain't saying shit unless I'm doing something wrong. So like when nothing was being said, that was good.
Yeah.
Which is, what do you think Mike does to clients now?
I'm so glad you touched on this.
Mike doesn't say anything. Good job. But you best bet when my mouth fucking opens up, it's, hey, put that knee out, abduct your knee a little bit more, hey, tuck your pelvis in, pelvic tilt, roll your shoulders back and down, okay, chin to chest, right? All these mechanisms. And it's like, again, seeing what I'm actually doing to them, this doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good to be fucking critiquing people all day long. I don't like this.
Yeah.
So let's do some opposite shit now. Let's just fucking be like, how can I genuinely be like, this is dope, you're just doing this right now. Like, this is amazing. It took a lot of depth to get to feel like just someone doing a split squat's amazing. Someone could be like, what the fuck? Yeah, it is, it's fucking amazing. But to be like, yo, good stuff, great stuff. Always congratulate, high five, you look beautiful today, you look amazing today, you look strong today, you look resilient today, you look empowered today. I feel that shit. Boom. When I do that for them, I'm really doing it for myself. I'm validating myself. I'm giving myself the things that maybe I wasn't given when I was a younger kid, right?
100%.
That's what I'm doing through them, because it comes back, it's a reflection of self. So when I can do that and focus on what it makes me feel, the result, I don't care what comes back to me and stuff like that, but how that makes me feel to be like, Dre, great fucking split squat, man. Dope as shit. Like, even some of my clients are like, really? Right? Like, changing the way they're perceived.
Yeah,
like, I'm changing those wires and stuff, which is really changing me, which is all I want to do is focus on self, because everything takes us out of our own bodies. And if you want to change the world, change yourself. So I love that. I'm seeing that with the clients. And it's beautiful because I'm literally seeing change.
Yeah.
And then we get to the black and white. Well, now results coming from this. I want to keep doing it.
Yeah, it's a mindset shift, more or less. That's the
not
journey
just for
is,
results.
Yes, it is a mindset
but like,
shift.
I feel good doing this, which means I can do it for a long time then.
I'm glad you touched on that, because that was actually something I was going to bring up a while ago, is the dialogue of like, what is the psychology behind the dialogue that you use and how that translates to other people. And it was actually very healing for me, because I saw a lot of how I was taught to do things in the way I coached. And I had to evolve. Like, I think that before it was a little less noticeable, because like early on in my journey, like, I have my own clients and stuff like that, but I also like was headset up, like I was on the mic. So like you say like all the fun stuff and the templated stuff that you have to, but like when you're going and you're coaching with people, or, it's not, you don't always think about that. You're more concerned about the experience that you're putting on for people, right? And so when I went off and I started my own business, I realized that a lot of my coaching cues were, don't do it like that, don't do this. And I caught that within like a matter of the first like couple of months that I was like back doing it on my own. And that's how I would talk to myself from a young age when I would do sports, when I would, like when I first started weightlifting and I would have a bad rep, like that's how I would talk to myself. And so I had to really switch that to being more of like the, hey, high five, like that was dope. Or like, hey, do you remember when you first started? Like where you were at? Like, dude, crazy night and day difference. Like bringing those things up like help people, and that's because like I've had to do that with myself. Right. I'm so hard on myself because I had my journey in there with like the thyroid issues, and like no matter how hard I worked, I wouldn't, there was a period of my life where I believed I wouldn't see the results. It was just for pure enjoyment and mental development at that point in time. But then like now I can look back and I was like, nah, you made it through that shit. You are who you are now. So like now I feel good about that. I need to take that feeling and like I need to make sure that my clients can see that too. You feel me? Yeah.
You're an amazing human.
Thank you. You too. touche.
Do you, I guess, let me speak for myself for a second. We do these things, we help ourselves because we want to help our clients and all those things. But when it doesn't work the way we want it to work with them, when it doesn't click, right? Just like if I want to tell my fucking parents how to live life, right? Because I see them suffering and stuff like that. I see people suffering. I think that they can get out of that suffering. You don't need to suffer. It can help you. I can help you. It's really hard to accept people that can be very close from you to let go of control of things.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. I get it. You know, in the semantics of, you know, telling someone, hey, push your knees out. You know, we're giving them form and we're guiding them in a sense, but not making them feel like they're fucking stupid and they're wrong all the time and like I'm not doing anything right. I don't want them to feel what I used to feel before. And I'm sure that's probably what you feel in life because most people fucking act the same. And I know I'm generalizing here, but let's not fucking lie. The world's kind of a little interesting. So I'm gonna give them a different reflection that they haven't seen so far, right? And they're gonna feel that. They don't even know it, subconscious. They feel whatever I'm trying to emit out to them is different now. And they might not be receptive, they might be more receptive. But I know I'm changing something whether they know it or not, I feel it. But when things don't go our way, right? When clients don't eat the food, when clients don't sleep, when they don't do the things that we're suggesting or guiding them with, it's like sometimes I used to get hard on myself, right? Of like, well, what the fuck can I do differently here and this? And that's when over time I'm just like, well, I know I'm doing as much as I can.
Yeah.
I know I'm putting my best foot forward. Can I do more? Sure, but we want to play this fucking game? Because it could always be more. Let's be real here for a second. But not at the expense of my health and mental health of this thing, right? Because if this breaks or goes down, you can forget anything else, right? That's like where the juice of prosperity will get trainers to certain levels or fitness coaches or health coaches because we're learning through our clients. It's not just like, no, you learned from what the fuck I'm saying to you guys right now, right? Like you're here, I'm here. No, I'm just as much as a listener and a learner from you than you wouldn't even believe. And they're like, some of the clients are like, wait, what? They don't even know that they're teaching me stuff because I'm picking up on stuff and not choosing just to be like, well, not noticing things. I'm very aware of what's going on.
You have to be very observant.
Right?
And with how they even talk about their life too.
Because it's going to make us feel a certain way.
Yeah. And you can also pick up on a lot though about how they struggle with making that change. Because that's at the end of the day, like, we help people be change makers within their own life. And I used to be hard on myself too, right? Like, you know, if there might be somebody who wasn't complying exactly how I wanted to or whatever, but I actually think that's a good time to look back and reflect on like, what questions didn't I ask for this person? Not in a sense of like, you know, beating yourself up as a coach, but like, how can I get to know them better? Like, I'm here to guide them. So like the more I can connect with them, like I value that so much more than like a typical process that I run someone through.
It's so much more intimate than that.
Yeah,
right?
and because you're not gonna, everybody has different struggles, everyone has different pasts, like, you know, and luckily, you know, with some clients, they're willing enough to like open up to you and share that to you, and then, you know, maybe you can relate in a sense that somewhere you've been, or if you haven't, and so then you kind of almost have to like be that person that can be the hand hold. I don't want to say a hand holder, but like a support person. Yeah, a support person. While maybe you guys figure it out together. Maybe you bounce ideas off of each other, or like you ask them what they think they need, and then you let them be that guide, and then you give them what you can within that, right?
So you're saying like literally meeting them where they're at.
Yes, I think there's so much power in like reverse engineering your client and realizing like what hardships have they been through, what struggles, like their experiences with food, like how do they think, how do they feel when they go through things, like, and until you know that, you really actually don't like have a strong sense of how to guide them. You have a sense of how to guide, you have a sense to guide yourself, but their situation might not be the same. I think there's a lot of, you can be very young in this industry and project your lifestyle or your whatnot onto people. I've been guilty of it at times. Of course. But you have to.
It's like we're holding like a mirror to someone right now, without them having to literally look in a mirror and be like, I can't literally look at myself right now. But we're choosing to say certain things and guide them certain ways that lets them see themselves, right? They're not ready for that, right? We're not going to force things on people. It just doesn't work out, and that's why I think everything just kind of happens how it happens organically, without force. And that's fucking beautiful.
But that's the beauty in challenging yourself, though, is because the more things that you've gotten out of yourself, the more likely you are to relate to a client that you have.
Your space, your containers.
If you're just very rigid in your ways and you're a calorie, regardless, I'm a firm believer of if you start your journey like that, you're not going to end your journey like that. You will get that feeling one day where you're like, I need more. What am I missing? You know?
Yeah.
So that's why, I mean, my biggest advice to anybody who would just be like starting out is to be open, like about be open about who you can be with all of it. Because you might be insecure about a body part or like, you know, you want to look like this, but at the end of the day, like, how do you want to feel while you're doing that? Is that being impactful for you in the biggest sense? It doesn't have to be for other people, but like, is this making waves in your own life? Or are you just like beating yourself up because you want to be different?
We don't know how things are going to turn out. We don't, like, that's the thing that I have to not analyze and be like, well, the probability of this happening is like 99% of the time it's probably going to happen. Like, even then, you don't fucking know. Those are just mechanisms to keep us safe and keep us where we're supposed to be and all these things like this, so we don't go out and try different things and like trust that we don't know. And just like you said, like, be open. But for someone to be open, they have to kind of like somehow trust some shit. Otherwise, they're going to be fearful and not do anything. And it's this like underlying trust that's built, as you said, as I agree with, over just trial and error, man. It's fucking, that's the part of life.
You never know if you
You're
don't
figuring
try.
stuff out.
Yep.
Right? Like, for me, it's having this. It's having like connections with people and like getting to know them on a deeper level. And it's amazing to see someone like yourself who has, yes, done work, but also allowed herself just to be, right? Like I love the quote, you know, we're human beings, not human doings. And to let yourself sit and reflect and appreciate and acknowledge and be aware and shift and change and all these things that are happening, the ebbs and flows, the pendulum swing, that's fucking beautiful. That's amazing. So thank you for, one, coming on here and speaking this to people and speaking it in front of me, being vulnerable enough to share your life and a little bit of who Dree is. But two, for you, just for, fuck, man, it's tough. Yeah. Right? And
it's definitely not easy.
You know, so thank you for sharing with us today.
Yeah,
it's been an honor of mine to sit here and listen to you. So thank you. What do you have coming up in your life? What do you have to share to everyone about anything that's coming up in your future, near future?
So right now I'm in my era of getting back into bodybuilding after getting off of all my medication for my Hashimoto's and like healing myself through that. And I guess my intent with that is like, you can be served a platter of a lot of shit, but it's what you make out of it, right? You can heal and grow from that. So that's like something that I'm doing personally. But other than that, with business, man, I'm just
what are you going on?
I'm moving gyms. I'm excited to, you know, grow having a little online venture here that I'm working through as well. And just trying to like continue to grow a community of women who like want to A, get fit, but B, also are like on that personal journey with themselves. So yeah, it's just been a lot of figuring out how I can do that for the masses. I've always had this vision of being able to help as many people become like their truest self through fitness. So that's something that I continue to do and trying to advance.
I love it. Yeah. So where are we at? Are we in Phoenix right now?
Phoenix,
yeah.
Yes.
I'm just gonna keep it broad. If you're in the Phoenix area and you're interested in training and you want a little bit more than just lifting weights and food, you want to get a little bit more connected to who you are, figure yourself out, and vibe with someone that's dope as hell and has gone through it, is going through it, is practicing it, look her up. Dree, what's your Instagram?
It is Dree, D-R-I-I Hernandez.
Check her out, people. She's an amazing human. I had such an amazing time with you, learned so much about you in just an hour and a half. So I can only imagine what I would learn from you in a session. I'm like, what do I do to end it? Like, I will end with this. Without gratitude, everything can feel like nothing. But with gratitude, nothing can feel like everything.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yay. That was fun. Good vibes. Good talk.